Full and radiant Caribbean, a desirable geographical location that has unfortunately been used by powers and empires for the purpose of war and colonialist expansion, by robbing the great Caribbean of the possibility of having an active player in defense of the regional integration. From Hispanic intervention to American occupation, that characterized of occupied and intervened has led to more than a decade of economic recession. It was in 2015 that the government declared that an astronomical debt as unpayable. Soon after, Congress passed the Promise Law that ended a kind of simulation of democracy because it meant accepting a board of supervision that responded to the United States legislature with powers over the elected government and which has imposed harsh austerity measures. 2 years later, a hurricane destroyed everything in the path and caused losses valued at more than $90 billion. And overwhelmed society that mistrusts the ruling class. There are many allegations of corruptions and irregularities. All of this in the most complete impunity. This is what we're going to be talking about today. Puerto Rico, articulator link in the Great Caribbean conjuncture and geopolitics. This is what we're going to be seeing today. We're going to have more information, we'll have guests, and as always, we'll have your critical thinking. Let's start with all of the administration at Checkpoint. 2 weeks ago, the Research Journalism Center of Puerto Rico published about 900 pages of conversation held by Governor Ricardo Rosselló and other 11 officials of his administration via encrypted telegram messages, in which they issued homophobic, misogynist, classist comments, revealing indolence and social neglect, even mocking of the victims of the Hurricane Maria. Threats to the press and acknowledgement of corruption and mismanagement, conflicts of interest. And this is about it. Knowing this information aroused a wave of outrage manifested in several demonstrations that have filled the streets of Old San Juan. Yesterday, thousands filled the highway of the Americas, and general strike was launched, supported by unions, activists, social organizations, and universities. The common demand is, Ricky, quit already. After days of pressure, Rosselló said he would not stand for the re-election in 2020 and will leave the presidency of the new Progressive Party, but will continue in office until the end of his term. Let's recall the first words after the chaos of the chat came out.
Recordemos sus primeras palabras después de que los chats saliesen a la luz.
My determination has been to continue working for Puerto Rico. There is much work to be done. It is a great responsibility that people have given me. I feel that responsibility, and I will continue fulfilling it. That I have made some changes, of course. Am I proud of what I did? No, they were just comments, and they hurt several people. I apologize for that, but once again, I need to advance and continue the work we've been doing for Puerto Rico. Well, let's add other testimonies that were gathered by people on the streets. Well, this is just, in my opinion, he doesn't want to accept everything that's happening. And everybody is demanding him to leave. We've asked for 20 days that he resignates, but he is trying to give a candy to his party members, offering to resign from the presidency and the candidacy in 2020 in exchange for letting him stay for the year and a half. But this is unacceptable. My personal opinion is that he must resign, regardless of whether he takes the decision he makes in regards to his party. This is a problem in the country, and he does not qualify nor he meets the requirements to be a governor. Regardless of the decision he made, the target is what the people have determined. He's fired. It's the only thing we want is for him to leave so that the country can go on normally, and that the economy doesn't get stuck because of what is happening in this moment. Puerto Rico officially is an articulator point and on being a colony for many centuries. Let's go to the geopolitical characterization. Puerto Rico, officially free and associated state of Puerto Rico. It has about 9,000 square kilometers and just over 3 million of inhabitants, according to the 2018 census. It is all composed of a large island of 78 municipalities and San Juan as a capital. 2 municipal islands, Vieques and Culebra, and numerous uninhabited keys and small islands with great touristic and scientific value. Scholars say that perhaps its most important and determining natural resources is its privileged geographical location, northeast of the Caribbean, east of Hispaniola Island, to the west of the U.S. Virgin Islands, and with its coast about 536 kilometers from Florida. This makes it an articulation point of the Caribbean between South and Central America with North America, as well as between the American and European continents. Even since the 16th century, it is recognized that it occupies a central position for the communication between 4 continents. For Africa or Europe to the Gulf of Mexico, it is the first large island to appear on the track. Being at the heart of the chain of the islands, it is the link between the major and minor Antilles. This makes Puerto Rico a border between the West Caribbean, identified with the older ones, and the East one, identified with the minor ones. This impeded the development of the socialist and sovereign governments, and even stronger ties with the immediate neighbor, Cuba. This is because the United States used Puerto Rico as a key position to occupy Panama Canal. Just like the Carib War against Germans in 1941, the municipality islands were the several decades naval practice zone. Several military bases and security agencies are currently active in these sites. There have been strong They were not so different in the times of Christopher Columbus. The peninsula used the territory for their expansive imperialistic purposes during the 16th century. Puerto Rico, then San Juan Bautista, was a place of departure of the riches destined for Spain. At the same time, it was one of the bases to guarantee conquest of Peru in 1534. Its status as a border between the Western and the Eastern Caribbean made it a point of collision between Spanish interests and its enemies after 1600. Prisons in the capital were at times considered as a system to be rebellious. Since 1808, the islands was used as a base of operations and espionage against the separatism of Mexico and Caracas. Well, let's go to the websites. Let's start with telesur.tv.net. Thousands of people in Puerto Rico demand the resignation of the governor. Under the picture, we see the largest newspaper in Puerto Rico says,
Entonces veo en el texto, al final, justamente,
it says at the end,
en la parte última de la nota, no nos adelantemos, el periódico más grande del territorio,
this is the largest newspaper of Puerto Rico, The New Day, added to the pressure saying, with the headline, Governor, it's time to listen to the people, you have to resign. The public outcry that runs throughout every corner of this country makes it imperative to get a response. In this hour of anguish and uncertainty, the burden of the responsibility falls on the governor, Ricardo Rossello, says the newspaper. Among other comments, he says that he thanks the freedom to express all of the people, and he is willing to go under any impeachment. Let's see, that even if he doesn't want to, Rossello may have to leave the post because the Legislative Assembly has initiated a process of impeachment consisting of several stages. If it moves forward, the House of Representatives and Senate will vote to dismiss him. This is what this website said. Let's go to another one that says, New Day of Puerto Rico. Tear gas launched at demonstrators in front of the fortress. This is the house of the governor. On the bottom says, hundreds of protesters arrived on Monday afternoon in the area of the first executive's residence in Old San Juan, after a mass march called the People's March, calling for the resignation of the governor, Ricardo Rossello. Tensions between the police and protesters began to escalate last night and continued into early hours. This would be the third time that a demonstration in front of the fortress culminates in this way. Alainet.org. It says, this is of José Caraballo, professor and director of the Center of Information and Census in the Business Administration Department of the University of Puerto Rico in Calley. It says,
entre otras de las tantas cosas que analiza, muy centrado en esto de la Junta de Control Fiscal Supranacional,
it says, some casual observers say that the board was only option, but the U.S. Treasury recently endorsed an issue that Tunisia made, this is 2016, to help them refinance their debt. Was that not possible with Puerto Rico when Antonio Weiss himself, advisor to the U.S. Treasury Department, testified in Congress that without the promise, these other extraordinary measures would become necessary? Was it not possible to challenge much of the debt that might have been declared illegitimate and to pay part of it in exchange of stopping all the outcry? So was it false? Maybe. Okay, we'll consult this to our analysts. They're all fully aware of the reality in Puerto Rico. So, what happened with the promise of transparency, of opportunity that Rossello made just when he announced that he would be a candidate for governor? Can he overcome all of this turbulence? And if so, what would be the destiny of Puerto Rico as a state nation? We're going to analyze this with the researchers and our guests. First pause, we'll be right back. Puerto Rico. This is a communicating tubes between all of the Caribbean. There are not only chats would have doomed this president. There are several other factors. The island was already in crisis before this. The scandal, due to the filtration of the chats, adds to all of the instability because of a board that was named by the U.S. and limits the sovereignty. In August 2017, it went into default. And the people who have gained from this, all the speculators, and most of these people were American. Since the ousting of these chats, U.S. tried to use these incidents in their favors. Trump is deemed negatively in Puerto Rico because of his actions after the Hurricane Maria. And what he says is that there is great corruption corruption in this government without accepting any blame. Additionally, 3 weeks ago, there was a procedure of the federal government against the Education Board, Angela Avila, and another lady, Julia Beatriz Keller, that was because of fraud. Apparently, there had been $15 million that have been mishandled. Our first guest is Dr. Rivera Diaz, and she is from the University of Puerto Rico. Thank you very much. Do you agree with us of the irregularities that are revealed in the chats? And this is just only confirming a very perverse plan. Well, yes, in fact, in Puerto Rico, there is an air of struggle. We want to write a new phase in history. People are indignated with the government of Puerto Rico. Everybody took to the streets, not only because of the chat, but because it has been revealed the colonialism, the capitalism, and even the patriarchal aspect that have been awful for the development of our country. It's been humiliating to read these chats. They're laughing at the poorest people of our country. The lack of respect to the people who died. And as the Latin American people know, there was a hurricane that devastated the people, and 1,000 died. And people died not as a consequence of a hurricane, but it was as a result of the lack of service in this island. And this has been a complot between the U.S. government and the government of San Juan, Puerto Rico. So, of course, this was also revealed. And what the chat did was just confirm who are the real responsible people of the inequality, of poverty and exploitation that we are living. So that's why our people, everybody of all generations, have taken to the streets, because we want our dignity back. Thank you very much. I want to go to Carlos Fontanete. He's also a dean of a university in Puerto Rico. I want to ask you, what do you think will be the prediction of the outcome of all of this? Hi, Lucia. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I think that it's easy to predict that he will have to resign, because the legislature and the Senate will investigate, and they will find that there is basis enough. And this will be presented between today and tomorrow. Both the Senate and the Congress are both expecting to vote on this initiative. So I think that the process will begin soon. The votes are already in place, and the governor will have to resign. And on the other hand, all of his cabinets are leaving. His ministers are quitting, and he's alone. So you can't govern like this. Yes, there have been several people who have quitted from his cabinet. A former judge also says that he accepts what he said in the chat, and he is up for 6 years of prison. Marinilda, can you tell us if this is a pivoting point?
coyuntura
do you think
tan
that
turbulenta, que se asemeja a terremoto
in
sociopolítico, a una
this
ruptura definitiva de esa
outroar,
condición colonial y de vilipendio a la
do
que
you
ha
think
estado
it's time to put
sometida
an
por
end of
tantos
the
años la isla?
colonialism that the island has been living for so many
Yo creo
years?
que es importante
Well, I
plantear
think that
que
it's
esta
important to say
revuelta que
that
se ha
this
dado en
uproar
nuestro país es histórica, nunca antes
that has been
en esta
historic is
nación
that has never
habíamos
been,
visto
we
tanta
have
gente
never
en las
seen
calles.
so many people in the
Ciertamente nos
streets
da
before.
visibilidad en la esfera internacional.
This gives us
Este grito
visibility
llega a
in the
diferentes
international
partes del
scene,
mundo a través de las redes,
and this
a través
reaches
de la
the
prensa.
entire world through the press and
Nos
internet.
parece que sí, que
And we
hemos
think that,
podido
in fact,
por lo
we have been
menos
able
ayudar a
to
encauzar
help
ese proceso
put
de
this
libre
in
determinación
place,
para el país.
this
Sin
process
embargo,
of free
es
determination.
importante
However,
entender el
it's
terreno
important to
político
understand
para
the
ver
political
en las
ground
condiciones en las que nos
so
podemos
we can see
encontrar. El terreno político
where
a nivel de
we're
los
at right
Estados
now.
Unidos, y lo estamos viendo con los tweets del
Right now we can see
presidente de
this
los Estados
through the
Unidos,
tweets of the U.S. president,
aludiendo a que nosotros no tenemos
and
la
what
capacidad
he
ni
says
siquiera
that we
para
don't have the
gobernarnos,
capacity
y que lo
to
que está
govern ourselves.
habiendo en ese terreno político norteamericano
And maybe what we can
es
read into this
afianzar con,
is that he's trying
enmiendas
to
incluso a la ley promesa, que es la que crea la Junta de Control
he's
Fiscal,
trying to get in,
afianzar ese
make more
poder
laws
hegemónico
and have more
colonial
power,
de Estados
hegemonic
Unidos con
power
Puerto
of the
Rico.
U.S.
Ya
over Puerto
ayer
Rico.
salió un comunicado
Yesterday there
por
was
uno de
a
los congresistas, el
a
señor
declaration
Grijalva,
of a
que
press
preside
of a
la Comisión
congressman
de Recursos Naturales, que
that
es la que
is
crea la
overseeing
ley
a
promesa
a
y que crea
commission
a su vez la Junta de Control Fiscal impuesta por el
that
Congreso
was
de
the
los
one that
Estados Unidos, hablando,
created this
aludiendo a la
commission
posibilidad de empezar los
that
planes
spoke
para
about
enmendar promesa y adjudicar
how
de
to
mayor
change the
poder.
promise
Esto
law.
es muy peligroso,
And this is
porque
very
lo que estamos
dangerous
diciendo es que
because
la
what we're
crisis
saying
en la
is that
que
the
se encuentra
crisis
Puerto Rico,
of Puerto
el gobierno de
Rico
los Estados Unidos está utilizando
is
eso
being
como
used
un
by the U.S.
mecanismo
government
para
as a
afianzar
mechanism
ese control sobre nuestra isla.
to make the
Le
control
pregunto al
over
profesor
the
Julio
island
Asunción
even
si
stronger.
este puede ser el momento
Professor
histórico
Julio,
para dar
do you
ese
think this
salto
is the
definitivo y romper,
historical
con
point
esa condición de
where
coloniaje?
we
Es
can
decir,
break
nos preguntamos o nos
this
inquieta,
statue of
renuncia al gobernador, ¿qué viene en lo
colony?
inmediato? ¿Cuál sería el destino de Puerto Rico
What do you
como
think would be the
Estado-nación,
destiny of
profesor?
Puerto Rico as a state
Bueno, yo
nation?
pienso que todo el esfuerzo
Well, I think that all of
colectivo
the
del pueblo de
collective
Puerto Rico
effort
está
of the
orientado
people of
a
Puerto
remover
Rico
al gobernador.
is aimed
Un
at
movimiento
removing the governor.
multipartidista
This is
de
a
mucha diversidad en
multi-party
términos ideológicos, y
movement,
eso hay que reconocer.
and this is something we have
Por
to
otro lado, hay
recognize.
que
On the
reconocer
other
que esta
hand,
molestia del gobernador hacia el gobernador también se ha
we
alimentado
have to
de lo que
say
ha sido
that
una molestia hacia el gobierno federal, es decir, hacia el gobierno de
that
los
there
Estados Unidos
is
hacia Puerto
some
Rico. Su
mistrust
trato a nosotros
towards the
por más
U.S.
de 100 años.
We've
Pero
been under
sobre todo, el trato
their
del
control
presidente Trump
for 100
secuela
years.
del huracán María, la
But
forma
right
en que nos ha
after,
tratado,
but
las
pivotally, what
expresiones
was
que ha
more
hecho sobre
more important
nosotros,
was
la
what
pobre
happened after
reacción del
Hurricane
gobierno
Maria.
federal en la recuperación de Puerto Rico y sobre todo las
There was no
limitaciones
support
que
for
el
the
estatus
recuperation.
territorial nos impone para nosotros poder desarrollar las herramientas,
And
las propuestas,
all of the
modelos
limitations we
de
have
desarrollo
to
económico
impose our own
que quisiéramos hacer y
development
que son idóneos para una isla como Puerto Rico,
and that
pero
are
lamentablemente no
feasible
podemos
and
por
adequate
esa
for an
falta de
island as Puerto
autoridad,
Rico.
por esa falta de soberanía.
And we can't
Así que el pueblo de
go
Puerto
forward
Rico
them because
está
there
muy
is no
molesto, está muy
authority
molesto
here
con la
to
situación
press them.
colonial y el grado de subordinación
So
que
there is a
sentimos,
grade of
o que sentimos
subordination
nosotros,
that we
que nos tiene
feel
sometido el gobierno de los Estados
and that
Unidos.
we're submitted
Yo creo
to
que sí, que va a haber un
under
reclamo
the
de
U.S. So
colonización,
yes, I think there
pero
will
no
be a
puedo decir que
movement
va a
of
ser hacia una
decolonization,
dirección o
but
la
I
otra.
can't say it's
Yo
going to
creo que
be
los puertorriqueños
towards
reconocidos
one direction or the
que
other.
tienen el poder, tienen la gestión
I think that the
para quizás
people
superar
of
ese
Puerto
sentido
Rico
de dependencia, de baja autoestima
feel and
que un
know
sistema
that they
colonial le
can
impone a las
stop
personas.
with
Yo
this
creo que eso ha sido positivo.
colonialism. They
Por
can
otro
feel
lado, hay
that
que
they can
reconocer
guide their own
que algunas
destinies.
personas este sentido de desesperación en
Some
algunos
people-
casos también ha propiciado un sentido de mayor dependencia hacia los Estados Unidos.
Some people, on
Sea
the other
cual
hand,
sea la
do
dirección,
feel
lo que yo creo que
dependent
está
on the
claro es que el
U.S.
pueblo puertorriqueño
Regardless of the
ya
direction
no acepta
where we're
la
going to
situación
take,
territorial.
I
Y
think
yo
what
creo
we
que
do not
todos
accept
estos eventos,
is
el hecho de
this
que nos
territorial
lancemos a la calle,
situation.
el hecho de que
The fact
que
that we're all
reclamemos
taken to the
inmediatamente
streets and that
la
we
ida del
protest
gobernador, yo creo que todo
against the
eso es
governor and we
un
ask
collage,
him
es
to
un hilo
resign.
de frustraciones,
I
de
think this
molestias
is a
que
collage
evidentemente
of
tiene su
frustrations
génesis
that,
en
of
la
course,
situación
has a
colonial de Puerto
genesis in the
Y le
colonial
pregunto a la
situation of
profesora
Puerto Rico.
Marilda,
Let's go
El
to
valor
Professor
geoestratégico
Maria
que
Nelda.
hace un ratito estábamos describiendo
What
en
is the
una pieza,
strategic value
cuando
of
hablábamos de
Puerto
Puerto Rico
Rico?
y la cuestión geopolítica, explica en buena medida su relación con potencias e
Do you
imperios y
think
cómo, a pesar de ser
this
parte de
this
una comunidad
situation
mayor como el
explains
Gran Caribe, está en deuda con la integración, con la
their
unidad regional? Usted lo mira así, María
the
Nelda, ¿y qué
reality?
reflexión le pide
How
al
do you see
respecto?
it?
Bueno, yo creo que
Well,
la
I
misma
think
situación colonial en la que nos han
this
estado
colony
sometiendo
situation that we're at
por cientos de años, no solamente
for 100 years,
con los Estados Unidos,
not
¿verdad?
only
Que
under
llevamos
the
ya
U.S.,
más de 100 años en esta relación desde
it's always
1898,
been
sino
more than 100 years
también
with the
previo a
U.S.,
eso
but
con
previously
España.
with Spain.
Nos ha
This
de
has
cierta medida aislado
this has
de
isolated
nuestro
us
gran Caribe
from our great
y
Caribbean
patria latinoamericana.
and Latin American country.
Ciertamente yo tengo muchos colaboradores
In fact,
en Latinoamérica.
I have many collaborators in Latin America,
noticias de Puerto Rico.
and many times they say that we don't receive news from Puerto Rico.
Política
Of course,
con los Estados Unidos,
this is because of political relation with United States, and there's control on the information too.
Sobre esta visión de que Puerto Rico
And there's this vision that Puerto Rico is a colony of the U.S.
desarrollado, es un país. Entonces se quiere utilizar
So it's,
a Puerto
I think
Rico para eso,
Puerto Rico is
y
being
ya el
used
país
to give that
ha dado
image.
cuenta de que eso, ¿no?
And
De
by
que
now,
esa cortina que se le ha vendido,
I think
esas
that
falsas
this
que se le han
curtain
vendido
and
al
these
mundo,
false
no es la que
news
se
that the
vive
world
en
has
nuestro
received
país. Aquí
is
se
not
vive
what
en
happens
pobreza,
within our
aquí la
country.
gente vive
Here
en
we're
mucha
poor,
desigualdad,
it's
hay
an unequal
problemas de
society,
acceso a la
there are
salud, hay
problems of
problemas de
access to
acceso
health,
a la
to
educación,
education,
porque todo se ha
because
privatizado,
everything
el
has
sistema de salud
become
se ha privatizado.
private.
Yo he compartido mucho estos análisis
I
con
have
compañeros
shared this
del grupo de
analysis with
trabajo
other
de Glaxo,
partners
donde
from
hemos
Glaxo,
trabajado profundamente
where
el
we
análisis
have
de los sistemas de salud, que es un
worked
derecho
in
fundamental,
depth the health
de todo
system
ciudadano y
services
ciudadana
and
en
how
nuestro país.
every
No tenemos
person in
ese
the world,
derecho,
every
porque el
person in our
gobierno de los
country
Estados Unidos, en
needs
nuestra
to have
Constitución,
health
privó
service.
de ese derecho a los puertorriqueños y puertorriqueñas. No tenemos un sistema
We don't have a
universal
universal
de salud.
healthcare
Nosotros
system.
gozamos de salud, pues la persona que lo pueda pagar,
We
que lo
only
pueda
have the
financiar. Así
system
que
that we can pay,
vivimos en una
that each one
situación
can
de
pay.
mucha precariedad, y obviamente
This
nuestra
is totally
desconexión con
basic.
América Latina tiene que ver en
And our
parte,
disconnection
yo
with
diría que
Latin America
la gran razón
has to do
por
with
esa,
part
situación política colonial
with this
de Puerto Rico
colonial
con los Estados Unidos.
situation with the
Y le pregunto
U.S.
para finalizar,
And
Fontanet, profesor, ¿cómo
I
describe
want to
o
ask
cómo ha
once
visto,
again,
qué valoración tiene de la postura que ha
what is your
adoptado el gobierno de
posture
Donald Trump?
of the Donald Trump administration?
Bueno, Donald Trump
Well, Donald Trump
ha logrado
has been
unir
able
a todo el sector de Puerto Rico
to
por
gather
diversas
all of
ideas,
the
¿verdad?
people of Puerto
Filosofía
Rico
ideológica en contra de todo lo que son sus postulados, pero también se está dando en los
against
Estados Unidos,
everything that
es decir, y
he's
fuera de
against.
Estados Unidos. Así que un poco lo que ha propiciado
So,
ese trato irrespetuoso hacia el pueblo de
what
Puerto
this
Rico también
irrespectful treatment
ha logrado
from the
Puerto
U.S. to
Rico,
Puerto Rico
maximizar, un poco tratar de fortalecer ese
has
sentimiento
strengthened
de
this
que, bueno, si no
sentiment
nos quieren,
that if we don't, they don't want us,
déjenos libres. Es
then
decir,
let us be free.
nosotros no tenemos que rogarle nada
We
a
don't
nadie.
have to beg
Y si el
anything
sector
to
estadista en
anyone.
Puerto Rico, que hay que reconocer que es un sector
And if
significativo en términos cuantitativos,
if they don't see
yo creo
that
que
we
se ha
have
sentido muy
a lot of wealth
trato de
on our
Donald
own,
Trump hacia Puerto Rico, particularmente hacia el
I think
reclamo
that
de la
they don't need
admisión de
us,
ese sector,
neither do
lo cual
we.
ha sido rechazado reiteradamente por ello. Entonces hay que preguntarse,
So I think we
¿cuál va
have
a
to
ser la
ask
reacción de ese
ourselves,
sector ante
what
el
will be
rechazo?
the
¿Va a ser uno de
reaction?
indignación y por consiguiente aspirar a una libre asociación o
Will
aspirar
there
a la
be,
independencia? Porque evidentemente
will we have
mantener el
independence,
status quo
or what
no
will be
sirve.
the figure that we will
Así
go
que es muy
after?
posible que ese trato, esa política de Donald Trump
So I
sea un
think this
acelerante
policy
para que el
of
sector
Donald Trump,
anexionista entonces decida repensar cuál es su
because maybe we
propuesta,
have
cuál
to
es su
rethink
estrategia y
of the
quizás en la
proposals.
alternativa
And
de
what
que
is
la
the
nación no es
alternative?
viable, abrazar entonces otra alternativa de estatus.
So then, if this doesn't work, then we'll have to go look for another option. Thank you very much to both our guests. It has been, your input has been very important. Here we have from these two interviews. Let's see where our next part of the analysis will take us. What would it mean to recuperate Puerto Rico? Maybe it will be recovering a great actor in the Great Caribbean. And what will it mean to the regional policy? We will consult this with our next guest. We're going to go to a break and we'll be right back. We're back in our critical moves. Let's keep on revising what the geopolitical influence is Puerto Rico in the region. Let's go to see more information. What has happened historically in United Nations? Since 1972, United Nations has approved resolutions in favor of decolonizing Puerto Rico. However, there has been nothing put in practice. In the recent resolutions, it is said that this Board of Revision has control over the legislative and authorities in Puerto Rico, and it's in terms of all of the financial aspects. The resolution says that this makes it even worse. There have been 5 votes, 5 elections on consulting people if they want to be part of the U.S. Those last elections, 97% says that they want to keep on being part of the U.S. Only 500 voters appeared out of 3 people that were eligible. The U.S. has never opened the door to making Puerto Rico a new state. From the beginning, when the U.S. became part of when Puerto Rico became part of the U.S., it was said that the CEOs of companies took advantage of the resources, and they pay even less taxes than they do in the U.S. Okay, I'll tell you who our guest is now. It's Julio Muriente Pérez. He's a geographer. He's of Puerto Rico, and he's a great intellectual. And he was here in Venezuela for the NAM, the Non-Alignment Movement. I would ask you, does the island understand the relevance? Well, I can't answer without first thanking Telesur, because millions of people in the planet are going to be able to know. And Telesur has opened the eyes of many people around the world. So the Puerto Rico reality is something familiar to everybody. I would say we know of how diverse mobility is. In the same sense, there is a diversity in what people think. However, now we have many people on the streets, and I'm sure that he's going to have to quit. In this case, yes, there will be some sectors who will ask Rosselló to quit and to designate somebody else, and that's it. But there are going to be some other sectors, and this is the most important part, that has been adding everything that has been happening with the corruption accusations and with the disaster and with the deaths, with the impoverishment of the economy. And all of this creates like we're building up a big puzzle. and the head is Ricardo Rossello, but there are other pieces. And what is the image that is projected beyond the resignation of this man? It's this dependency, economic dependency, and the subordination, and the fact that Puerto Rico has been a colony for over half a century. And let's not forget that it's been too much time. This is from the 69 years. It's almost 70 years. The facade of this has been destroyed. There is a unilateral relationship, and I guess the biggest proof of this is this board of supervision of our fiscal movement. Through the U.S. Promesa law, there was going to be 7 people who were going to regulate our economy. And this board was not thought to help the Puerto Rican economy. It was conceived strictly to recover the money and pay back Wall Street and pay all of the people to whom we owe money. Assuming that when they invaded us in 98, they began as owners of the country. So of course they would have a basic responsibility with the people of Puerto Rico. Right now they're just giving their back to the problems. And this is what has led to have all these basic ways of life. Well, now with these chats that Ricardo Rossello they've been revealed. And this, if you see it in terms of corruption, there's also a corruption of dignity. And this has been the drop that already overfilled the glass. However, before this, there have been many other drops. This was just the last drop. And now it's been a volcanic eruption. As you said before, there were many years of peace, but now it just decided to explode. I want to keep on moving in the internal waters, and with this geopolitical aspect view, let's see who Ricardo Rossello is. Let's analyze his background. He says that he will not quit, and he just wants to mend his ways. Ricardo Rossello Nevares, university professor and politician of Spanish ascent through the father. He is the son of the former governor Rossello, who was governor until 1991. He studied at MIT, and he became an engineer in economy and medical. He has also gone to the medical field. He worked for some pharmaceuticals to develop the cure for cancer. In policies, he also participated in the campaigns where his father tried to become president. There was also other movements where he also participated. In September 2015, he finally announced that he would run for governor, and his agenda was going to be more comprehensive and transparent. His rule has been marked by a multimillionaire debt and with the Hurricane Maria. Now, there has been a filtration of almost 900 pages of content of a private chat between him and his closest collaborators. They were sexist, homophobic, misogynist, and criticizing everybody. Well, this is the man who said that there was no crisis of the debt, but crisis of people believing him. Well, we have discovered the double face
funcionario de gobierno y de quienes le han
of the
acompañado,
government officials, of him
amparados
and
en
the
una
people
presunta impunidad
that are along him.
para insultar, para maltratar,
And they have not cared at all to insult
creyendo que nunca jamás iban a ser descubiertos.
and speak badly of the people, thinking that they would never be discovered.
El solo hecho de que fueras descubierto
Just the fact
suponía
that
que
he'd be
automáticamente
discovered
iba a haber una respuesta popular. No,
would mean that there would be a
ahí
public
está justamente la
outroar.
grandeza de lo que ha acontecido. Es como la imagen aquella de Jesús
So this is
cuando se
like-
va acercando al templo de su padre.
This is like the image
Se
of
indigna
Jesus
cuando ve que está tomado
going
por
to
los
the
mercaderes.
temple of
Pero
his
igual Jesús
father.
mira al otro lado y saluda a algunos de sus amigos cuando
But Jesus looks all to all of the ways.
Nada pasó. O sea, para uno indignarse,
So
uno tiene que tener capacidad de indignarse.
if we're going to be
Para no
indignated,
indignarse,
we
uno
have to
tiene
have
que
the
creer en la
capacity to do
dignidad.
so.
Y el colonialismo, uno de sus instrumentos
And one of the
más terribles
instruments of
con el
colonialism
colonizado es querer castrarlo en su capacidad de
is
indignar.
trying to castrate
Por lo
his
tanto, el solo hecho de la
critical
indignación
critical
generalizada de
views.
nuestro pueblo es el más extraordinario de los ejercicios descolonizadores.
So, yes, we
eso
have
me lleva a
undergone
preguntarle
these type of
El gran
practices.
debate, ¿cuál será el
So,
destino de
what
Puerto
is the
Rico
great
como
debate
Estado-nación? Es decir, la cosa
of
no
Puerto
acaba,
Rico
solo se
as a
renunció
city
a
state, as a
Por lo
state
pronto-
nation?
Por lo pronto,
Well,
salir de
so
esa
far,
dimensión de la negación,
to leave this
de que somos una cosa con
dimension
la cual se
of
puede disponer
negating
a sus ojos,
everything
afirmarnos sujeto histórico,
and affirm ourselves
levantar
as
la
a
única
historical
bandera. ¿Tú has
actor
visto todas
and
estas
raise
personas que
our
banderas
only
llevan
flag.
en todas partes? Bueno, la única posible, la nuestra. Es un proceso de afirmación nacional victorioso.
This is a
Y
process
desde la
of
afirmación
national
nacional
affirmation
y desde la
that's
reivindicación de la
successful
dignidad,
and
irá el
revindicating
desarrollo de la
dignity
conciencia avanzando progresiva, desigual y conflictivamente,
progress
de acuerdo
slowly.
con lo que va avanzando, porque si algún concepto aquí ha sido
But if there
lanzado
is
al
one
cesto de la
concept
basura es la indiferencia.
that has been
De
said
forma
is
tal
the
que
indifference.
no se trata de una actitud
So
triunfalista que de la noche
it's
a la
not an
mañana se
attitude
transforma a una
that
sociedad
from
que
the
vive
night
sometida
to
al colonialismo
day
por
we're going
tanto
to
tiempo.
transform everything.
Se trata de que este paso
It's
en
about
las
how these
zapatas, en
steps,
los fundamentos
how
de una
these steps
nación es
in the
esencial.
fundaments of the country
Porque
are
desde la
essential
dignidad, desde el
because
orgullo de
from
ser,
dignity
¿ah? ¿Por qué tú crees que los palestinos lloran tanto cuando les
is when we
destruyen
work.
sus casas en
Why
estos
do you
días?
think
Porque
people
de alguna manera es
cry
esa zapata del ser y vivir en
when
su
they
tierra.
break their houses?
Pues nosotros
like the
estamos
Palestinians are
construyendo
having
esa
now?
zapata, y mira de qué manera, lanzándonos a las calles de manera ejemplar. De forma tal que
So,
no se trata de una actitud triunfalista,
This is not a-
mecanicista, ni de creer que de súbito.
this is
suceden
not
las
just a
cosas.
triumph
Están
attitude.
sucediendo las
No.
Luego que
Things
este
are
sujeto,
happening.
Renuncie o sea expulsado de la gobernación.
And the fact that
¿Resolvieron los problemas de Puerto Rico?
Rossello
Claro que no.
was kicked
Pero
out.
esta situación nos ha permitido ir más allá en el horizonte.
This situation has allowed us to go further beyond in the horizon.
Todos y todas, construir sobre esa zapata. Edificar
Let's
sobre esa
remember
zapata.
that we're going
¿El
to
ocupante
build.
podría permitir eso? Que se enfilen los ánimos hacia allá, hacia la soberanía, la independencia.
Es que toda
Where
la
do you think
vida
all of
de
this
este
is
pueblo
going?
Lo hemos hecho a pesar de ellos.
Well,
Si tú me tienes
everything
aquí,
we've
Javier,
done,
hoy, y tuviste a mis
regardless
queridos
of the
compañeros
people
hace
who are
unos minutos,
here.
no fue porque graciosamente el imperialismo estadounidense ha hecho lo posible porque estemos aquí. No, es a pesar de ellos. Y nosotros
So,
tres,
this is,
lo digo con verdadera humildad, somos apenas una minísima muestra.
we are a
Podrías
minimum
estar
expression.
semanas enteras
because
entrevistando a compatriotas
we
que te
could,
explicarían, que
I would like you to
abundarían
interview
sobre
more
todo.
people
Este ha
to
sido un paso de
explain.
avance en el desarrollo
This
de la
has
lucha
been a step in
anticolonialista.
advance
Ahora, hay un
against the
componente de este
colonialism,
proceso,
but there
que
is a
es una gran
component
lección.
in this process.
Nadie tiene la verdad, como decimos en Puerto Rico,
Nobody
agarrada por el rabo.
is owner of the
O sea,
truth.
aquí los más diversos y
Here,
visibles sectores
We have
son la
several,
vanguardia.
we have a
La
diversity of
vanguardia es la
opinions.
totalidad. Ayer vimos 750,000 personas.
Yesterday we
¿Quién
saw
dirigía aquello? Todos y nadie.
Hundreds of people. Who
tanto, hay una
directed them?
grandeza del
Nobody and
pueblo,
everybody.
María.
So yes,
Yo no
there is
puedo
a
menos que
greatness
ser
in these
optimista.
people. I can
Yo
be
sé que
nothing
esto no
else than
será
positive.
fruto del destino o de
That
algún
this
milagro.
is- this
Tendremos
is-
que batallar como lo hemos hecho hasta ahora.
This is not only a mystery,
Pero qué bueno
but we will go forward
Llegamos a 2 días de esta fecha
We are
que te
just 2
mencionaba de la
days
nación. Mira cómo estamos recordando
before
nosotros las fechas en la
this
calle,
date.
luchando por la nación puertorriqueña.
¿Ha sido esto también una visibilización de Puerto Rico? en
Has
la
this
esfera
been a
internacional?
visibilization of Puerto
Absolutamente.
Rico in
Puedes
the
estar seguro,
international
segura que cuando me toque
scheme?
intervenir ahora en el encuentro
Yes,
del Foro de São Paulo,
absolutely. You can be
diré algo
sure
así a
that
los
now that I
compañeros y
would have to
compañeras
talk
de la
in the
Liga
Foro de
Libertaria,
San Pablo,
les traigo un regalo desde Puerto Rico.
I have a gift from Puerto
¿Sabe qué
Rico.
regalo es? 750,000 personas
You,
en la calle.
you know what it is?
500,000
It's
personas en la calle. San Juan ocupado
750,000
por las
people
masas.
in the streets.
En Estados Unidos,
San
en
Juan
Europa,
is
donde quiera
occupied
que hay
by
un
people.
puertorriqueño, una puertorriqueña,
Wherever
en
there is a
Uruguay
Puerto
con
Rican
Pepe
person,
Mojica,
any part
allá
of the
levantando
world,
la causa de Puerto Rico.
then we will be
Ese es el
lifting
regalo que le traemos a este
the
encuentro
cause
del
of
Foro
our
de Sao Paulo
country.
que
This
comienza
is
dentro de un par de
this is
días.
the gift
¿Cómo
that
ha
I'm taking
respondido
everybody.
Latinoamérica y el Caribe,
How has
es
Latin
decir,
America and the
los
Caribbean
vecinos inmediatos,
responded to
a
this
esa
Trump initiative?
lucha histórica anticolonialista y antiimperialista que ha librado Puerto Rico?
Yo te diría que ha sido una
I would
respuesta
say
desigual,
that it has
porque
been an
muchos de
unequal
nuestros vecinos, a su vez,
response
son países y pueblos
because
dominados por las
many
potencias
of our
capitalistas
neighboring
imperialistas.
countries
Tenemos
are
que
guided
consignar
by the
naturalmente el
U.S.
respaldo de siempre de la Revolución Cubana.
I have always had
En el caso de
the
las
support
islas,
of the
pues, ha
Cuban
habido una
Revolution.
comprensión progresiva de la situación que vive el país.
They have always been a
concepto
great
que
thermometer of what's
preside
going
ese
on in the
trabajo de
country.
hoy, que de Puerto Rico, eslabón articulador del Gran Caribe. Esa es la expresión más atinada.
Well,
No
as
se
you
trata de
said,
una
it was
isla
perfect what
perdida
you
en el
said,
Caribe.
that Puerto
No,
Rico
es
is the
algo
voice.
que no mencionaron
And
al
it's the
principio,
voice,
es
it is the
que
opening
San Juan,
way,
Puerto
it's the
Rico,
hinge
queda a
to
una
all
hora
of the
de
rest of the
distancia del avión de
Caribbean
Caracas,
and South America.
que no por casualidad es desde San Juan, Puerto Rico, que se está diseñando operaciones militares contra
It's
la
not
revolución
casual
bolivariana.
that
Que
from
desde
Puerto
allí salieron las
Rico there are
tropas de
there
la
are
República
military
Dominicana en el 65. Desde
operations
allí salieron
headed
los hombres
for the
raros
South.
contra Cuba, Playa Girón.
This is where the
O sea, que Puerto Rico ha
here's
sido geoestratégicamente
we are
importante en
geostrategically
121 años
important.
de dominación estadounidense, como lo fue. Por eso San Juan,
Regardless
por eso
of the
San Juan
U.S.
colonial es una
domination.
ciudad amurallada. Como tú señalabas la introducción,
As you recall,
era
San
su
Juan
última colonia
was the
al
last
oriente, en la
colony.
ruta de los barcos, después de haber saqueado nuestras riquezas, y era la
It was the
primera
last
colonia
colony in
cuando
the
venía de
area.
Madrid. Es decir, no se trata de un
So,
pequeño islote
it's not just a
insignificante,
small,
no, se
insignificant
trata de
island.
una nación caribeña y latinoamericana
It's not a nation
objetivamente importante
of
en
whatever
función
nation.
de los intereses de todos los pueblos de nuestra América.
Entonces, ¿qué viraje geopolítico
So
representaría
what
recuperar
political change do you think would
Puerto Rico?
imply to recover Puerto
Digamos,
Rico?
que lograse su independencia y
Let's say that
acabar
if
la
it's
guerra
able to
Sería una
recover their
extraordinaria de los pueblos de
independence,
nuestra América. Cesaría la pretensión de utilizar a Puerto Rico como frontera
so
estadounidense
what we
en el
ask is
Caribe.
that the U.S. stop
Permitiría
using
que
us
Puerto
as a
Rico fuera
borderline.
mirado como ejemplo a seguir. Sería una derrota tremenda del gobierno de Estados Unidos.
Of course, it would be a great defeat
Fortalecería la relación de
if
Puerto
they
Rico
lose
con
us,
nuestros
because it
vecinos.
would,
Mencioné
this
Cuba,
would
pero igual
strengthen
menciono Venezuela, igual menciono
other
Nicaragua, y
organizations.
menciono los demás pueblos que han estado presentes, de forma tal que no es insignificante.
So it's
la
not
situación de Puerto
insignificant
Rico.
what's going on in
Y
Puerto
qué bueno
Rico.
que tú haces estas preguntas,
And it's
porque
good that
si
you
alguien
raise
debe
these questions.
registrar en su concepción
Because
de
if
la
somebody
cartografía
can
política de la
register
región, el tema de Puerto Rico son los hermanos y hermanas
in their minds,
latinoamericanos y caribeños.
I think it's
Yo he dicho
important for the
alguna vez,
brothers and
aquí
sisters of
podría
Latin
no
America to be
importarte
clear
nada
on this.
el destino de los puertorriqueños y las puertorriqueñas.
I think that
Pero si te interesa el destino de tu pueblo,
the destiny of
te
Puerto
conviene
Rican people
que te interese el
are
destino
only
de Puerto Rico, porque eres de
the
Puerto
only
Rico
interested
que
are the
inicia
people of
muchas de
Puerto
las
Rico.
acciones
But if you're interested in the
contrarrevolucionarias que hacen
destiny
nuestro pueblo.
of all Latin America, then you should also be interested in the Puerto Rico
Esto que ha ido
government and
aconteciendo
the
es
situation, because
trascendental.
everything that's been
Y
happening,
ojalá, y cuando nos volvamos a ver acá en
and
los estudios
I
de
hope that
Telehit,
next time we meet each
podamos
other,
conversar sobre cuánto hemos ido avanzando
I
en
hope that we
el
can
trabajo
talk of
de
how
esta
much we've
zapata
been
que
able
estamos
to
cumpliendo
advance
en estos días de este julio maravilloso.
as a result of
Sea,
this
profesor,
marvelous
¿esto
July.
será
I hope this
motivo
will
de debate en
be
el Foro de Sao
so.
Paulo, capital
Naturalmente.
Will
venezolano?
this be a
Yo creo que
topic
vamos
in
a
the
verlo,
Sao
como
Paulo
fue motivo de
Forum?
debate
Yes, in
el
fact, it will
interior
be.
no alineado, donde los no alineados,
Just as well as it was in the
de manera muy clara,
nation
muy precisa,
non-alignment
sobre el
movement
caso de Puerto
recently
Rico para
that was
empezar la
held in
solidaridad
Caracas.
internacional. Fundamental. Recordemos que es una lucha altamente desigual.
Let's not forget that these are highly unequal
No le estamos pidiendo a
struggles.
nadie que sustituya el rol que corresponde a nuestro pueblo
We're
como
not
gran
asking
protagonista. Le
anybody
estamos diciendo,
to
"Oye,
substitute
danos la mano,
us. We're just
apóyanos, que
asking
estamos enfrentando
the other
al mismo
governments to give us a
problema".
hand.
Las esferas internacionales tienen una importancia.
Sí.
Claro que sí, hay una relevancia.
There are many
precisamente para
countries that
ir
have
romper la
high
invisibilización,
relevance,
para
and
que se sepa, para
that
que
is
se
your
denuncie.
role here in
Ellos
the
se
TV,
encargaron,
to
antes de
break
las
barriers
38
so people can know what's going on.
Ellos se encargaron en el año 53,
In the year
al año siguiente de
1953,
la creación del Estado Libre Asociado, de ir a la ONU. La ONU se había fundado apenas en el 45.
we
y
had
tenía
some
50
ambassadors that
años
went to the
en el
United
93.
Nations.
y lograron imponer una resolución.
And they were able to impose a resolution
por virtud de la cual
by
aquella
which
ONU, la ONU del 53, reconoció
that
al Estado Libre Asociado como nación
1953
descolonizadora.
of
Lo que pasa es que en
United
aquella
Nations
época,
recognized
otra ONU nutrida por las
Puerto
antiguas
Rico
colonias de
as,
Asia y
as an
África,
independent government.
ya más numerosa, aprobó la resolución 151415 y fruto de esa resolución del 60 surge el Comité de Descolonización para auxiliar en el proceso de lucha de autodeterminación.
And after that, there was a
Y es en ese
committee
comité
to
que se
aid
logra la aprobación de las resoluciones que ustedes han señalado. O
to
sea,
aid
hay una
Puerto
larga
Rico
historia
in
desde la base
decolonizing
internacional
the country.
hasta el día de hoy, hasta este momento que estamos conversando.
Up until now,
completamente abierto
this is still
y en evolución.
in
Quiero
process.
cerrar con un testimonio
I would like to close with a
Carlos
testimony
Rivera, líder independentista de Puerto Rico.
of a leader of Puerto Rico.
Estamos aquí en una marcha
We are here
bastante única en nuestra historia.
in a march that's
Es algo bien
singular.
sencillo.
It's
El pueblo de Puerto
It's
Rico,
very easy. The people of Puerto Rico, almost the majority,
la
is demanding
renuncia completa del gobernador,
for the
una
governor
persona
to resign,
tiene una
a
mente
person
completamente llena de justicia, que no
who
tiene
has
ninguna dignidad, que no tiene
a crooked mind,
que nunca debió de estar en
who
el
has
sitio
who had never should have been
el futuro
at the power.
de Puerto Rico. Triste para nuestro pueblo,
It's very sad for our
una de las
people.
cosas más preciosas es que este pueblo está enseñando
But
el
but our
potencial que
people
tiene,
are
la
showing the world
indignación que siente. Así
of the
que
potential that we have and how
Puerto Rico que se está levantando.
indignant.
Un símbolo, ¿no?
How
Profesor?
mad we are.
Usted lo escuchaba
Well, he's a
y decía,
symbol.
un gran tipo, maravilloso.
And as you listened to him, you said, hey, he's a great guy.
La síntesis de la nación puertorriqueña. Luis.
Well, he's the
Qué bonito.
essence of the
Gracias,
Puerto
profesor
Rican
Julio, por haber
people.
estado acá.
Thank you very
Un
much,
placer.
Professor Julio, for
Con
being with
sus
us.
consideraciones acá en Jugada Crítica, Espacio Geopolítico de Telesur. Pasamos a nuestras conclusiones.
Let's go to our conclusions.
Bueno, Puerto Rico
Okay.
definitivamente en términos
Well,
geoestratégicos,
geostrategically
es un actor
relevant, Puerto Rico is not an
no es un
insignificant
archipiélago insignificante,
archipelago,
como nos decía con palabras textuales nuestro invitado
as our
del
guest
Julio,
just told us.
usado tradicionalmente
It's
como
traditionally
frontera de
been
Estados
used
Unidos,
as a
como
U.S.
centro
border.
de maniobras
It's a
militares y
center of
beneficios
military
de
and
las
war
bases
maneuvers.
militares que están y
The
todas las
latter
operaciones
highlights the
programadas.
unfolding
Lo
and
último de esta
perversity
evidencia,
of
el
several
desdoblamiento y la
officials,
perversidad
starting
de varios
with the
funcionarios,
government
empezando por el
of
gobernador
Ricardo
Rossello,
Rossello.
sí, pero también un proceso de afirmación nacional
But it has
victorioso,
also
un
gained
punto
a
de
visibility
inflexión que da visibilidad a Puerto
in
Rico
the
el escena
international
internacional, que
sphere,
aglutina los más
brings
diversos
together the
o
most
disímiles
diverse
sectores que son la
sectors.
totalidad hoy, que son un todo,
That
al
is a
punto que se
total.
dice, esto es político y al mismo
And
tiempo
some say this is
trasciende
political,
lo
and
meramente
some say that it
político.
goes
Abre
beyond
la
it.
puerta a un
It
reclamo de
opens the door to a
descolonización
demand of
ante el maltrato
decolonization.
del presidente
Faced
Donald
with the
Trump, el pueblo
mistreatment of
responde,
Trump,
si no nos quieres,
the people respond.
déjanos
If they don't
libres.
want us,
Así
let us
como
free.
diversa es
As
la
diverse the
movilización, diverso el
mobilization
alcance
is diverse the
de esta
scope
isla
of the
pequeña,
island,
y hoy
that
estamos
today
viviendo
we are
frente a un
facing
paso
a
de
step
avance
forward
en la
in the
lucha
fight of
anticolonialista y
anti-colonialism,
antiimperialista con profundas repercusiones
with
en el
profound
futuro, en la
repercussions
geopolítica, en el reordenamiento
and the
de
history
nuestra
and
región.
reordering
Seguiremos
of the
viendo,
world order.
seguiremos atentos
We'll
a ver cuál
continue
es el
analyzing
desenlace,
this
que seguro
in
nos
future
acompaña.
programs.
Gracias por haber
Thank you
estado hoy
very
con
much for
nosotros.
being with
Hasta
us. See you tomorrow.